Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to talk about a specific subject that I came across during the week. I said I was going to do some of these videos quite often when I'm treating people in a clinic, working as an osteopath, treating runners and whatnot. I come across kind of an interesting subject or topic that comes up during the week, and I always mean to talk about it when I come onto this live feed. So today I'm going to talk about something very specific, and it's the pace that you should run when you're doing your easy runs or your kind of slow runs. I never refer to them as slow runs. I refer to them as easy runs. And the reason why I always call them easy runs is because easy should just feel easy. So therefore the pace is going to change depending on how recovered, rested or fatigued you feel on the day that you're doing the run. But what came up this week was I was scrolling through Instagram. I saw this fitness influencer who was in Kenya. He's at like a running camp, and he kind of vox pops another Kenyan runner. The guy's English, but he vox pops another Kenyan runner to ask him, what speed he does the slow runs at, and the guy says he does them at 5 minutes per kilometer. So then the influencer then alludes to the fact that all of us. So the Kenyan runner is a 2:12 marathon runner, and he's saying that if a 2:12 marathon runner is doing his easy runs at 5 minutes per kilometer, therefore you, me, and everybody else who's watching this video, we need to slow down our runs because we're nowhere near a 2:12 marathon. And if a 2:12 marathon is doing their runs at 5 minutes per kilometer, well then it just means that we're all doing our easy runs way too fast. And that's just such a, when you see that, you just straight away, I just get the impression that the person who's the influencer just has no idea what they're talking about. They probably no idea about training, certainly don't have any idea about how to structure and how to use the progressive overload and periodization in order to get better bang for the buck out of what you're doing. And the reason why I say that is it's so easy to kind of take one case and say, right, this guy runs a 2:12 marathon and his easy runs, he's doing them at 5 minutes per kilometer. But what he's leaving out, actually, I commented on his Instagram post, and my comment got like over 500 likes. I'll just give you a quick rundown of what it is. I'm just going to grab it up here. So he said, like, he alluded to the fact that this guy was doing all this running at this slow pace, and every time I look at my phone, it's kind of popping up because I'm getting more and more likes. So basically what I said is, you're missing the context. Your man is running over 100 miles a week. He gets lots of high intensity relevant to his workload. Most folks who are doing 40, 60 kilometers a week aren't going to get much bang for the buck by running 6 minutes per kilometer or slower, okay? So what I mean by that is the guy he's talking about is easily going to be, if he's doing a 2:12 marathon, he's going to be up around maybe 100, maybe a little bit more than 100 miles or 160 kilometers a week, okay? So relevant to that amount, he's probably doing, if he's doing 20% of that at high intensity, that's probably going to be up around about 30, 35 kilometers of very high intensity. So, most of us who are doing less might be getting 4, maybe 6, maybe even maximum 8 kilometers of kind of intensity work a week, whereas this guy's getting maybe 30, 35. So therefore, like I started when I started this video first, I said it's relevant to how the speed you run your easy or slow runs at is relevant to how fresh you feel, how fatigued you feel, how recovered you feel from the previous runs. So if this guy's getting up on a day where he's after doing maybe 10 kilometers of high intensity work, let's say on a Tuesday, if he's getting up the Wednesday, then of course he's going to do his slow runs at like 5 minutes per kilometer. But I think if you looked at his whole week in general and not just looked at one run, you'd probably find he does some of his easy runs maybe at about 4:30, maybe even 4:15 per kilometer, which just gives context what I'm talking about. And maybe some of the other runs he's doing, if he's going to be doing over 100 kilometers a week, he might even be running some of the kilometers slower than 5 minutes per kilometer. And the point I'm trying to make is that the best way to do your run training is to run as much as you can and do all the kilometers as fast as you can, so long as you can recover in between and make adaptations and get fitter and stronger. And that usually comes in, and people would usually find that the 80-20 rule, so 80% of their running is kind of done at a low intensity and 20% at kind of higher or VO2 max or a threshold intensity. And then that's pretty much as they can handle, relevant to the amount of training that they're doing. If you go, some people can go a little bit beyond the 20%, some people need to be a little bit lower than 20%, but it's going to be somewhere in around that. So if you're doing that, let's say you're doing 50 kilometers a week and your easy running pace, like what you would consider easy run now, say for me now, my easy run's going to be about 5:10 to 5:20 per kilometer, okay? So if I then start to say, look, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to run 50k, I'm going to run them at 6:10 or 6:20 per kilometer. That's going to be very, very slow relative to everything else I'm doing. And my ability to recover from doing my maybe 4 kilometers of intensity on a Tuesday, I'm going to feel very recovered by Wednesday, but certainly by Thursday afternoon when I go to run again. Running at that much lower pace is not going to give me the best bang for my buck. Okay, I'm going to be able to run at that 5:10, 5:15, even though that's only 5 or 10 seconds slower than this Kenyan runner who's running at 5 minute kilometer on their easy runs. Is the fact is that he's getting way more volume, he's getting way more load throughout the week. My loading is far less during the week, so therefore I can keep those easy runs at a faster pace. When I do that pace of my easy runs, I'm certainly in what I would call my zone 2 heart rate. So it'll be for me, it's kind of in around somewhere between about 132 to 142 beats per minute, somewhere in around that. If I'm doing any runs that are slower, sometimes I do run slower because, like I said, easy just means easy. So you want to know what speed to run your easy runs at. Just go out and start running and make sure it feels easy. If it feels like you're pushing it and it's a little bit tough, then you just need to slow it down a bit. If you feel that you can kind of increase the intensity a little bit without putting too much strain on yourself, you can increase a little bit too much or a little bit more. But there's no kind of golden rule. And this kind of idea that, oh, the Kenyans are running their easy runs at this really slow pace, therefore you must be doing yours too fast. It's just, you can't just nitpick little bits like that. You can't just cherry pick little bits of what they do and then implement it into your training. You have to look at them as a human and then look at yourself as a human. These guys as well probably aren't doing they probably aren't working during the week. Whereas for myself, like I'm working a lot of hours, there's no way in the world to be able to fit in 100 miles or 160 kilometers running a week. I just wouldn't have the time to fit it in. So if I was able to fit the time in, of course I could do some of the runs at 6, 6:30, even 7:30 per kilometer. Of course I could, and of course I would, because I would need to. But the fact of the matter is, I don't need to at the moment because I just don't put that much strain on my body in terms of my overall volume. So therefore, with the amount of volume I can do, I can keep the intensity a little bit higher. I'm not saying that you need to run all your runs fast by absolutely no means, but easy means easy. It doesn't mean that you have to, your easy runs have to be relevant to what somebody in Kenya is running a 2:12 marathon at. It just means easy in terms of you and what you do. Like I said, my recovery, if I'm running 50 kilometers a week, my ability to recover is top notch because I'm well used to running 70, 80, even up to 90 kilometers a week. So at the moment, I'm only running kind of maybe a half to 2/3 of what I would kind of normally do because I'm in a bit of a down phase now. But even if I am up around 80 to 90 kilometers a week, my easy runs, some of them might be around 5:30, but most of them I'd say be around about that 5:10, 5:15 per kilometer. And I just felt if I slow that down any more and made it even slower, my heart rate would be quite low. I wouldn't get as much bang for my buck. So you've always got to be thinking in terms of how much stimulus do you need from a run. So every run you should be like, what is it I'm trying to achieve? What stimulus do I need to inflict on my body in order to make that, in order to cause the physiological breakdowns so that I can make the adaptations and make myself fitter and stronger. And if that's just an easy run, go out and do an easy run, keep it easy, but don't compare yourself or don't make your runs relevant to whatever pace some Kenyan guy is doing at 2:12, because like I said, their volume is so much higher. Their ability to recover is going to be far less because they're doing so much more volume. So you're not comparing apples with apples, you're comparing apples with oranges, and it makes no sense to do that. And it's just when I see stuff like that, sometimes it can be very confusing it used to be confusing for me years ago when I didn't kind of understand this stuff so much, but I have a much broader understanding of it now. I've been running for 25 years. I've been coaching people for a good few years. I've been working as a clinician where I treat runners, swimmers, triathletes, cyclists, football players, rugby players for years. So I'm just well versed in this stuff now, so I understand it a lot more. But even sometimes it still does confuse me. But just when I see stuff like that popping up on my phone, and I look at some of the comments underneath, some people are going, oh yeah, this is me. I think I'm running too fast. I need to slow down. It's like you're comparing yourself to somebody who's so far removed from you that there's no point in making the comparison at all. I would just, if you want to compare yourself to somebody, compare yourself to yourself in the past. So, if you're going through a phase, say let's just say you're training for a marathon at the moment, just make your comparisons to yourself when you last trained for a marathon. Or if you're training for a marathon, you've never done a marathon before, just compare yourself to how you were this time last year, this time 6 months ago, whatever it is. Comparison can be the thief of joy, and quite often is the thief of joy. But I think if you just compare yourself to yourself, you'll get much more satisfaction from it, much more benefit. It will give you much more of an insight into how you're doing and where you're going. Don't compare yourself to any of the other runners in your club who are the same age, same experience, or do the same runs as you, because like I said, we all have jobs, we all have families, we all have other stuff going on, so it's difficult sometimes. And if you're struggling with trying to get your fitness or your health in order, reach out to me. It's something I can help you with. I do that all the time. When people come into me for a treatment, quite often we end up talking about training methods and how they can change, and quite often people text me a couple of weeks later, say, I've recovered from the injury that I came to see you with, but actually my fitness is getting much better because I've implemented some of the stuff that you've suggested that I do, and I've stopped comparing myself to the person, my best friend who I run with all the time, and for some reason he or she is getting much better and I seem to be getting much slower, and I tell them to implement these couple of things and they get faster. So like I said, if you're going to make a comparison of yourself, just make it of yourself and be fair on yourself. And it's important to measure metrics and outcomes, but it's not. But it's essential not to get caught up on them. So you can do stuff like, if you're training for a marathon, you kind of going through easy runs or half or fast runs, whatever. But when you go back, you can look at your heart rate throughout those sessions. I always look at it afterwards. I don't make any adjustments on the go in run if my heart rate's high, low, or whatever. Or very seldom I would. It's important to look back over your sleeping pattern, because most watches will give you your sleeping pattern as well. It's important to kind of be mindful of what you're eating and your recovery and your hydration as well. So making sure you got those things intact, and just kind of keep an eye on everything. And like I said, compare. If you're going through a period where you're not running particularly well or you're feeling quite sluggish, go and look at how much sleep you've had over the previous 10 days, and then go back to when maybe 6 or 8 weeks where you felt you were running well, and compare the sleep that you were getting then. And then look at the amount of stress you have going on in your life in terms of work or family or whatever, friends, whatever, and then compare it. If you can remember back at the time, what was the stress like then? Maybe there was more stress now. And it's a lot of stuff like that makes big differences. I think a lot of times amateur runners try to focus on the 1% to make everything better. Like they focus on things like, I need to get up early and do my foam rolling, or I need to have my ice bath, or I need to finish work early so I can go home and get my sauna, or I need to wake up early in the morning and get my sunlight and ground myself by walking on wet grass with my bare feet. It's like those things make very, very, very marginal, very small marginal change. And if you have all the other stuff dialed in, then more power to you. But I think if you focus on the macro stuff, like making sure that you're consistent with your running, making sure that you're keeping an eye on your recovery, the stimulus that you're trying to get on each run, and your nutrition and hydration, and then obviously the sleep. So if you just make sure you dial in the sleep, I think if you just do all those things, that's the road to making yourself fitter, faster, and certainly far more healthier. I think also if you do like what I've been doing over the last years, broaden your horizon of what you consider training, and then do more of that. So I'm doing lots of walking at the moment, and it's because I kind of realized about a year ago that walking is an essential part of training for me, but I never considered it as a training tool before that. Now that I'm using it, I find it very beneficial in terms of making me much healthier and also much fitter and faster in terms of what I'm doing. This year will be all about training for a half marathon for me, and I will keep implementing all that kind of easy stuff as I go through my weekly training. But I guess the main point of this video is just to don't get caught up on some of the stuff that the fitness influencers say online. It can be very easy sometimes to kind of get drawn into what somebody's saying, or drawn into a product or a protocol, whatever it is they're doing. Look back over your thing, dial out if you're stuck. Have a look at the macro. What worked before? What's not working now? What changes can you make? What changes can you make that was working before that you might not be doing now? And if you do that, I think you'll implement some systems that will help you really get fitter and faster. I keep following this channel because there'll be more videos like this, and I will keep educating people as much as I can week on week how to get fitter, faster, and stronger. That's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you all for watching. I'll be back on during the week with another couple of videos, and I'll be back on next week with another live feed to talk about some sort of aspect of training that I came across during the week. In the meantime, you know what to do. Run far, run fast, run small, run sensible.